Kurt, let's start with you because more than anything else, the U.S. is losing its grip on its superpower status, in part because of the wokeification of our military and the destruction of patriotic education in our schools. Do you think this is being done on purpose?
Well, Laura, I tend to think that people like the reasonable and anticipated consequences of their action. They've taken the military, which was the most powerful in the world, the United States military, and I was there in the Persian Gulf War. In 100 hours, 3 American corps annihilated an entire nation's army. It was a achievement on par with anything that Caesar, Hannibal, Alexander had done. Not that anyone studies history anymore and would know who those people are. And then we kind of gave up, and we haven't had an unequivocal victory of that level in about 30 years. Do they intend to make us weak? What they intend to do is have a military that is much like the rest of our institutions, that's poorly run, that's focused on wokeness, that's focused on culture war, that's focused on maintaining and expanding the power of the people who got us into this mess in the first place.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Bruce Karasik, co-founder of the Jewish Republican Alliance. Happy New Year, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on this special edition of JRA Loudspeaker. We are thrilled to welcome back Kurt Schlichter to our show. We'll be talking to Kurt in just a few minutes, but first, coming up in March of 2024, this year, we'll be celebrating the 8th anniversary of the Jewish Republican Alliance. And for these past 8 years, I've spoken in front of big crowds and small venues, on TV, on radio, on many shows and others, and on this show, and have written and commented on the top issues of our time. But today, at my daughter Allie's suggestion, I'm going to do something I don't think I've ever done before with a talk. I went on Chabad.org, and I saw an article called How Can We Wait? How Long Can We Wait? By Chaya Shukat. And it's about this week's Torah portion and the midrash that explains the background of the story. But what I found was how amazingly relevant it was for us today. So first the story and then my commentary. Did you know that the birth of Moses was in large part due to the actions of his 5-year-old sister, Miriam? And the midrash explains that her parents and ultimately his parents were separated. They didn't want to have any more children because of the Egyptian slavery that they were living under and the orders from the Pharaoh to throw all the Jews in the river and kill all the newborn boys. So Miriam, who's even at 5 years old, her strong faith told her parents if they got back together, remarried, and had another child, that he would one day redeem the people of Israel. Yes, and that child was Moses. We all know the story. And after Moses was born, his mother Yocheved had to place him in this miniature ark, and he went down the river. And Miriam was waiting in the reeds, waiting and watching, ready to act. And because she was there waiting, she witnessed the miracle of Pharaoh's daughter lifting Moses out of the water. And because she was right there waiting, she was able to call out to her mother and offer her services as a Jewish nursemaid. Now, we all know that Moses was saved. He grew up to lead the people, the Jews, out of Egypt. It was a miracle. The Pharaoh's daughter may have spotted the baby Moses and lifted him out. But without Miriam being there on the spot, waiting and acting and ready, calling out to her mother, the outcome may have been completely different. And now my commentary. In many ways, we're all waiting. Many of us are waiting until the November election to elect a new president, waiting for a time when interest rates can be lower or prices to be affordable again. Many of us are waiting for our streets to be safe again, waiting to secure our borders, waiting to improve our economy, and waiting to end the homelessness and poverty in our big cities. Waiting to the day when Israel finally can be recognized by its neighbors and live in peace. Waiting for the day when anti-Semitism is wiped out from the face of the earth. Waiting for the day when our Christian brothers and sisters are no longer persecuted around the world. waiting for medical breakthroughs that cure diseases and help loved ones and millions of people around the world, waiting for a time when our society truly honors its elders and its veterans and its police officers and firefighters, waiting for a day when our election system is honest and fair and respected by all Americans again. But just like Miriam, for this to happen, for this to come true, we all have to do more than just wait. We have to watch and we have to act. Act by being fearless, speaking out, and supporting organizations like the Jewish Republican Alliance and great speakers like Kurt Schlichter and others who do great work. Act by staying informed, getting involved, and making a difference. Acting by holding our leaders accountable. We can all do our part, and the Jewish Republican Alliance is fighting with you and for all of us. Together, we can continue to champion the values that we hold dear and make a lasting impact on the issues that matter most to us. Your support is an inspiration and a driving force to us to work even harder with even greater dedication. And we are honored to have all of you as part of our community. And we are excited about what we can achieve together this year and in the future. You are all a big part of our journey, making a meaningful difference in our nation and the state of Israel. So thank you once again to all of you for your generous support over the past 8 years. We know if you're involved with the JRA, you share our passion for making a meaningful impact in our community and beyond. And we want to remind you that the Jewish Republican Alliance is more than just an organization. It's a movement and a community, and we want you to be continuing to be a part of it. As Miriam did, we will wait, we will watch, and we will act. We will continue on with hope, with faith in the distance, and with our commitment to our Judeo-Christian values that our country was founded upon. So once again, thank you all for being here today and being part of our journey. And now I would like to introduce, it is my pleasure, live from Franklin, Tennessee, my good friend and fellow JRA co-founder, Mitch Silberman. Mitch, take it away.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Always such an insightful speech. I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, I found Kurt's columns. And I have to tell you, there are very few, if any, other columnists out there with this combination of perspective, wit, and in-your-faceness, if that's even a word. Kurt has written a few times about a subject I want to delve a little deeper with you today, which is, are we heading towards a civil war? Are we already in a civil war? Now, that's a level 1 question that demands a level 2 answer. Now, let me explain. Many of you are aware that I was a childhood actor for 10 years in Hollywood, and ever since then, I've absolutely loved movies. One of my favorite films is Pulp Fiction. And there's a scene where Samuel L. Jackson is driving a car with his fellow gangster, John Travolta, and they got a third guy in the back. And they just came from killing a bunch of guys, so John Travolta still had a gun in his hand. And as the three of them were bantering, John Travolta casually turns around with the gun in his hand. And let me tell you, as a Second Amendment enthusiast, never, ever, 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 ever point a gun at anyone or anything unless you're willing to destroy it. Just ask Alec Baldwin. Anyway, sure enough, they hit a bump in the road. He accidentally squeezes the trigger, blows the guy's head off. So a level 1 question is, I have a dead guy in my back seat. What do I do about it? A level 1 answer is, well, you get rid of the body. Gee, why didn't I think of that? Thanks. What a great idea. Let me write that one down. But that's not what happened in the film. They called the boss man, Marcellus Wallace, who said, I understand, I'm going to send you the wolf, played incredibly by Harvey Keitel. Now, the wolf showed up with level 2 solutions and answers. What do you do with the body? Where do you put the body? What do you do with the blood? What about the blood inside the car, outside the car? What about the clothes of Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta? What about the police? I mean, this guy came with level 2 solutions and answers. So when you ask, are we heading towards a civil war? Will there be a civil war? What does that look like? Is it neighbor against neighbor? Is it red state against blue state? Is it red counties against the federal government? I mean, these are really serious and scary questions. And I got to tell you, the last time we had a civil war, the weapons were rudimentary by today's standards. But we have irreconcilable differences, unbridgeable gaps with the other side, with the left. I mean, for crying out loud, they think men can get pregnant. They think Israel is the bad guy. which means we have to win politically, socially, culturally. In fact, I would go so far as to say we're in a spiritual war with these people. You saw, and never doubt what they're willing to do. You saw what they tried to get away with in 2016, but they were unprepared for the apex predator that President Trump was and still is. You saw what they did get away with in 2020 in the rigged election. That's right, I said it. And you see what they're trying to do now. If 5 years ago, I'd even told you 3 years after the 2020 election, they're going to try to throw President Trump in jail for 700 years, and they're going to try to take him off the ballot so people can't vote for him, you'd have thought, no, they wouldn't go that far, but they are. I mean, look what they did with January 6th. By the way, January 6th was not an insurrection. It was the first insurrection in history where they didn't have weapons and they were taking selfies. But they are very effective, they are very nefarious, and they are very devious. So this question demands level 2 solutions and answers, and Kurt is the absolute perfect person to run it by. And before I formally introduce him, I'm sure you've seen this meme before, which is regarding the Civil War, our side has trillions of rounds of ammunition and hundreds of millions of guns, and their side can't figure out which bathroom to use. Now, many a truth is said in jest, but these are serious times. So on that note, I call Kurt a friend. I start reading him. We've had lunch several times. Kurt's Twitter, if you want to follow him on X, is at Kurt Schlichter. He was personally recruited to write conservative commentary by Andrew Breitbart. He's a named partner at a growing LA trial law firm, retired Army infantry colonel with a master's in strategic studies from the U.S. Army War College, and a former stand-up comic. He's a frequent guest on Fox News, Fox Business News, appears on air with such luminaries as Hugh Hewitt, Sebastian Gorka, and in his own right, he is indeed a best-selling author on many fiction and nonfiction books. As an Army officer, he commanded a cavalry recon squadron and served in Desert Storm and Kosovo, as well as multiple disaster operations. He lives in the South Bay area of Los Angeles, where his hobbies include red meat and red wine. Kurt, welcome to the show. Oh, you're on mute. Kurt, you're on mute.
Thanks for having me. It is great to be back.
Terrific.
Thank you, Kurt. Well, let's get to it. You know, Kurt, from my perspective, our country's a mess. The border is open. Inflation is rampant. You can't walk the streets in our inner cities because of crime, and there's poverty and homelessness and war around the world. How do we stop the left?
I feel like I'm in that old Chesty Wheeler, the Marine situation where it's you know, we can attack in any direction because we're surrounded. You know, yeah, it's a bad and ugly situation. It is, and it's as dire in ways it hasn't been in 150 years. I think it is worse than the 60s. In the 60s, you had some people who were kind of radical. Now you have an entire political party that's radical, and a lot of people who believe that you and I and pretty much everybody listening to this seminar have no moral right to participate in our own governance, that our proper role is to be serfs and obey, and to accept our position at the foot of the great pyramid of oppression, because we are bad people because of who our parents were. We reject all this, and we are right to do so. It is un-American. It is un-Judeo-Christian. It is a failed ideology that requires us to surrender. You know, you guys mentioned the number of guns versus the number of pronouns problem. At the end of the day, as Chairman Mao said, power comes from the barrel of a gun. At the end of the day, we have our own veto. We don't have to obey. We have to give our consent to be governed. What they depend on is us giving that consent. What they depend on is us accepting and respecting their authority as our garbage elite. And you see that all over the place. They've taken over the institutions. I think it was Iowa Hawk on Twitter who said it famously, and I'm paraphrasing, because I'm not a president of Harvard, so I don't want to plagiarize anyone. The path to success for them is to find a respected institution, gut it, skin it, and then wear the skin suit and demand respect. They are pretending to be the institutions that were, whether it's federal law enforcement, the NFL, our military, institutions we used to respect. Well, we respected them when they were doing and serving their institutional purposes. Now they are serving the purposes of the elitists who run them. Yet they demand the same respect that they were formerly given when they were pursuing societal interests. It's like reporters. You know, we're neutral. We're brave truth tellers who go out there to inform the American people. You should respect us. No, because you're not that. If you were neutral truth tellers, we would respect you. If you didn't have favor one side over the other, if you believed in objectivity, if you weren't devoted to pursuing your communist objectives, we would respect you. But they're not that. They are pursuing their communist objectives. They aren't neutral. They aren't objective. They are partisan. And yet somehow they still demand that we respect them as we would have when they didn't do those things. And you see a lot of that in our society. You see the destruction of norms by the left for short-term gain, you know, like objectivity in the regime media. And yet they want that short-term advantage, but they don't understand that when you change the status quo does not remain static. The status quo changes with you. When you stop being, for just one example, objective as the media, you lose the respect you got by being objective, by doing that hard thing. And then they're shocked by it. And they don't understand it. It's like society is. You remember Jenga when you were a kid? It was this big tower of little blocks and things, and you tried to pull as many out as you could before it collapsed. That's what happens with a society. That's the norms all work together and reinforce each other. You can't pick and choose. Okay, you can't be a woman on a date and give your date grief when he opens the door for you, right? Because you're a strong, powerful, empowered woman, and then get mad when he goes, okay, your part of the bill is $48.52. Things are a system, okay? And you have not just, you don't just get benefits, there are costs. You have obligations that you have to perform. And the left, in many ways, doesn't want to perform its obligations. It just wants those benefits. It wants the rewards. And it gets baffled when we say, wait a minute, that's not the rule. I'm not going to obey it. You look at I mentioned the horrible Harvard president. You have a mediocrity there. She was a diversity hire. Come on, she was hired because she was Black and a woman. That's the only reason. She's not competent or capable. I've written more books than her because I've written more than none. Okay, she was not impressive. She's in a joke, a joke portion of the joke that is the humanities. She's just and a plagiarist, and of course they're actually offended that we dare judge her, that we dare say no, you're a plagiarist and a loser and a diversity hire. Well, how can you do that? You're racist. Not enough anymore. You know, there was a time, and you guys are as old as I am. I remember a time when if you called somebody a racist, that would stop the person. You go, holy cow, I don't want to be that. Someone's certainly not going to lie about something such a serious moral indictment. I better stop and take an inventory of myself to see if maybe I'm not treating this person fairly because of his race or religion or ethnicity. You would take it seriously. You would say, God, nobody's just going to throw that word around. Maybe I've done some. I don't want to be a bad person. Maybe I need to take a personal inventory here. Now you call us a racist, we laugh at you because it's been devalued into nothing. Again, they want the benefits, but they don't want the obligation. The obligation of having racism be a powerful charge that stops someone in their tracks and compels them to perform a moral self-inventory is that you don't throw it out promiscuously. You don't misuse it. If it's something serious, you treat it seriously. Well, they don't want to treat it seriously because it's more beneficial in the short term to use it for temporary advantage. And then they're shocked. Shocked, I say, when people treat it as something not serious after they treated it not seriously. The idea that the status quo is going to remain to their benefit and they'll get the protections of it after they do everything they can to undermine the foundations of it is ridiculous. And that's really the bottom line issue for this whole thing. How is society going to solve this problem? And one way is violence. That is a option. I know I've been in the ruins of a country that chose violence. And even here, my family's hometown is Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, burned down by Confederates twice, 20 miles from Gettysburg. My great-great-great-grandfather was in the Union Army. I mean, this violence has always existed. The fact that we are the glorious exception, where to us it's almost inconceivable, is a great credit to the United States. But at some point, when somebody says your choice is to be a serf or a citizen, people are going to choose citizen. It's how they manage it. I think we have the answer. It's our Constitution. It's the ballot box. It's organizing like you guys do.
So, Kurt, I want to ask you about that.
But there is a danger.
Kurt, I have a question because you just teed it up for me beautifully. Bruce talked about waiting and acting. You talk about, I love the term you coined, militant normals. That's probably what got me hooked on your. So how does that all play together? You just brought up violence. Obviously, we're not advocating violence, but how does this play out? I mean, because someone posted that when you piss off the people that want to be left alone, now you're in trouble. So here we are.
That is. How do you deal with it? Well, look, we've got to deal with it through the political process. The courts sort of work. The elections sort of work. It is not, we are not hopeless at this point. When you get to the point where you are hopeless, where you have no chance to affect things through law, where you have no chance to affect things through politics, that's when violence becomes justified. I talked that in detail in We'll Be Back, The Fall and Rise of America. And we are nowhere near there. But when you close off people's ability to pursue their interests through rational procedures, like, I don't know, taking a candidate who half of America wants to vote for off a ballot and let's be clear, the legal reasoning is ridiculous. It's not, it's not even a close call. It's not even within 10 zip codes of anything like the kind of law I practice day in and day out. It is ridiculous. But that's the kind of thing you do when you foreclose people from having any kind of power. And then what's the other thing they want to do? I talk about the courts. Courts aren't perfect. Well, we don't like how the Supreme Court's going, so we'll just pack it with people who will vote our way. Do you think that do you think that half of America, normal Americans, the guys who built this country, who feed it, who fuel it, who defend it, are just going to go, well, being a citizen and had a good run, I guess I'm a serf now. I guess I got to do what these frigid wine women say. You think that's going to work? One of the problems with our alleged elite, and Mitch, you know this really well because you lived out here in California, these are the most parochial people on earth. I remember at one time I was at my church in an argument about something with somebody, and he started explaining to me about Muslims. Now, I happen to serve with Muslims overseas. The guy had never been out of the South Bay. He's telling me about Muslims, and he thinks they're only one thing, whereas there's a wide range of Muslims and a wide range of everything else. So he's not only got no experience, but he's got this narrow, bigoted view of Muslims are one thing. Hey, there's good Muslims, there's bad Muslims, just like there's good Christians, bad Christians. And these people just do not know the world. They don't know their own country. Mitch, how many people did you know in cosmopolitan Los Angeles who vacationed in Tennessee? Who
Very
really
few,
need something?
very few.
Do you know anyone with a truck? And that's not a gotcha question. That's a scope question. What is the scope of your experience? Yeah, I'm not demanding that everybody go, well, normally I'm a performance artist, but I think I should go bass fishing to get a better view of things. Well, you might be a more interesting person if you knew a few people who did. Okay. I remember I remember I had a friend from Montana. I said, Kurt, come up and visit me in Montana. And I said, look, I'm an LA trial lawyer. I drive around in a BMW. Your guys would hate me. And he goes, no, we wouldn't hate you. You're not pretending to be some you aren't. You're just who you are. And all the elite guys, the ones who talk about tolerance, would never say that. Because they want to tell you who to be. And they have a very clear idea. And if you're not one of them, you have no right to speak or be heard. Your interests don't matter. Everything you do is bad. You think people are just going to accept that? I don't.
Well, I agree with you, Kurt. That people will probably not accept it. One of the things that has been nagging with me, that has been pulling on my strings when it comes to hope in America, I started talking about this probably around 2018, where I started calling out this whole cheat by mail scheme, the outdated voter rolls, the ballot harvesting, the lack of signature verification, the lack of same-day voting, all this early voting. There's no chain of custody for any of this. And the Republicans continue to run on issues while the Democrats are running on collecting ballots. And you could have a guy that gets 5 ballots in his mailbox, and his kids are out for school, and Dad, we're not going to be home in time to vote, but can you fill out the ballot for President Trump? Sure, I'll do that. I'll fill it out for whoever, and he fills them out for Biden. Or there are people that no longer live there.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything about that. And here we are in another election year, and Biden, how could he be so poor and only be down 4 points? Something's weird. And they're just sitting back in the catbird seat. It's like, I don't care about the polls. We're just collecting ballots.
Well, look, I think a lot of people unreasonably hate President Trump and will not vote for him because it is a social thing. They are not looking at it objectively. They are looking at it based on their personal prejudices. And I think it's very hard to get around that. And I think that's President Trump's biggest challenge towards electability. As far as the election system, and I did some election law stuff after the last one in Nevada, so I kind of saw it up close. Right now, you have an election system that people don't trust, and you have reasonable security measures that pretty much every civilized country takes that we're being told are racist. Because apparently they think Black people are too dumb to go get IDs, which is the most condescending and insulting and stupid, frankly, thing that I've ever heard. They don't care because all they care about is their own power. Again, if you are looking for the long-term stability of your democracy, the last thing you're going to do is encourage doubts about the mechanics of the voting system. But when you send out a bunch of ballots, no ID, no security measures, and call people who seek them bad things, and in fact use lawfare against them, don't act surprised when people don't believe that your democracy is actually a democracy, since you are not doing anything that is what you would expect from people who actually want a functioning democracy. Again, pulling out the blocks on the Jenga tower and then acting shocked when it all falls down. That being said, California's Republican Party, believe it or not, has proven that if we actually address the battle as it is instead of as we want it to be, and in the case of the 2020 election, use ballot harvesting, etc., or 22 election, we can have good results. We can win races that we otherwise would lose. We just have to fight and win on the ground we have. Now, we do have a huge problem. We have Ronna McDaniel, who is head of the Republican National Committee. She's a disaster. The part of the blame has to go to Donald Trump, because I watched these eyes personally in front of me, watched his chief of staff, Susie Wiles, whipping votes for Ronna McDaniel. And it's important that we hold our politicians, Donald Trump, DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Asa Hutchinson, to the extent he counts, we hold their feet to the fire and say, hey, that was a screw up. That was a screw up. She's a disaster. She has to go. And she is utterly incompetent. And she is, to my knowledge, not preparing for the election fights that are to come. And there is a clear path to success out there, which I have seen zero evidence that she's following. And, you know, I would like to see all the main candidates turn around and say, Ronna, you need to get your stuff together. And then maybe she would. But what a terrible decision, rewarding 5 failed cycles with another term. Unbelievable. But a self-inflicted wound.
Yep. You know, when Donald Trump, the candidate, came on the scene, Kurt, no one had ever seen anything like it. The dominant alpha male, the like they'd never seen, whether it was giving out Lindsey Graham's phone number or, you know, the nicknames, the low energy Jeb. I mean, the list, I mean, he blew everyone away because no one knew what to, plus he didn't need anyone's money. Okay. That was 5 years, well, actually it was 8 years, 9 years ago, 8 years ago. So my question to you, they know his game. They know his shtick. He's very authentic. He's probably the most honest, authentic politician we've ever seen. He doesn't change. He doesn't pander. But now they know him. They've seen what he's does. How we know it's still a lifetime away. It looks like he's a presumptive nominee. I know it's not for sure. We all know that. But and I also know everyone on this call, we will line up behind whoever the Republican nominees. I get that. My question to you is, given they know his tricks, they know his ways, they know how he rolls, they know his shtick, how would he win this time around?
I think it's going to be very difficult for Trump to win. The first thing is you have 53% of them who are unreasonably biased against him. They will vote for someone else. Now, there is a chance that of the 53%, some of them will simply stay home. Some of them will vote for an RFK or a Cornel West, to the extent the Democrats allow them to get on the ballots. You know, you have the massive failure of Joe Biden, and it is massive. It's a disaster. It's only going to get worse. You have, you know, all these curveballs. The lawfare thing, my feeling is both the federal cases, which seem to be the more threatening cases. It's all nonsense, by the way. Every single charge is a complete joke and a disgrace and a disaster to the rule of law. But I think those federal cases will get pushed until 2025. Hopefully he or whoever wins gets elected and pardons him and every single J6 defendant, which I would do. If I were the president, I would do that the first day and let the Democrats know you don't get to win. Biden's going to get impeached, and there is real stuff there. I think that's nobody's looking at that, but that's going to happen. Biden's also going to have horrible things happen in the economy. Economy's already showing some bad signs. In foreign policy, we're getting pushed around by the Houthis. There'll be more disasters. Ukraine will probably resolve on unfavorable terms for Ukraine. He will backstab Israel, as he's been doing. I just wrote a book called The Attack, which comes out Monday. It's a novel about a terrorist attack in the United States. I am very, very concerned we'll have a massive terrorist attack within the United States during Biden's next year. With the open border, the weakness in the White House, I think that is almost a given. I would be shocked. I am shocked to the extent our enemies have not exploited the weakness that we've seen. If I was President Xi, I would own Taiwan right
Well, he's
It's
going.
not even close. There's going to be more disasters. So those, those problems may demoralize enough people on the Biden side to stay home. Donald Trump may be very, very clever in who he picks for vice president. I wrote a pretty provocative town hall column saying he needs to pick Nikki Haley, who I do not like, who I think is a squish. I think she's terrible. I think she's the cutting edge of 2004. I also think she brings a lot of things to the table that Donald Trump needs to consider. Not because I like it or dislike it, but because his job is to get elected. And I think having her on the ballot may actually do that. And I want everyone to understand, I don't want Nikki Haley anywhere near power. Okay? We've had Jeb Bush. We don't need her in a skirt. That being said, you have to look at things objectively. And objectively, from Trump's view, she brings a lot to the table. Because, folks, everyone does not think like we do. Unfortunately, we'd have a much better world if if you said, Kurt, would you like America to be run by the membership of the JRA? I couldn't say fast enough. Yes, fast enough. We would have a great country, patriotic, smart, effective. But that's not how things work. There are people in this country who do not think like us. They also have a right to vote. And unlike the Democrats, I believe everybody has a right to participate, not just people who agree with all my bizarre personal views. And we've got to accommodate them. And I think, unfortunately, some of them would be appealed to by Nikki Haley. So I think Donald Trump's got to take a look at her. My most controversial opinion that I will issue today.
Well, that is a good one. I want to go back.
Provocative.
I want to go back a little bit to what you said about the impeachment process. Mitch and I have been friends for such a long time, and we agree on most things. I think we have a difference of opinion on impeachment from a strategic level, not from that there isn't a reason for it. Here's my position, and I would love to run it by you. I don't see how it serves our chances, the bigger picture, for us to try to impeach Joe Biden. I'd much rather all the issues come out, have him shamed and weakened going into the 2024 election. Because if he's impeached, one of two things are going to happen. Either we don't get enough votes and they're going to run around saying he was acquitted in the Senate, or the Democrats say, like, okay, here's our chance. We get to dump this guy. And they put in anybody that's stronger, which would be anyone that's breathing would be stronger than him. So either way, I don't see how impeachment helps Republicans. And I want to keep our eye on the prize.
I think it does help us because all the stuff shaming him is not going to come out. The regime media is not going to publicize it. You go to normal people and say, what do you think of the money that Joe Biden got for his family from Ukraine? And they'll go, what? Impeachment's the only way to make that really something that people are paying attention to. It's going to fail in the sense he'll be acquitted. You will force Democrats to make a very tough choice, like John Tester, Sherrod Brown, Bob Casey in Pennsylvania. Senate Democrats who are up for election are going to have to look at all the evidence, which the Republicans are gathering. The idea is Republicans make a spectacular case in the House. It barely passes and it goes over, and the Democrat senators refuse to vote for it. And, I think that would be deadly for Sherrod Brown, for John Tester, for Casey, maybe in Arizona, and show that these people are just partisan hacks and hypocrites. But we need to do it also because this guy is a crook and he is a scumbag and he needs to go, though he won't. Joe Biden, unless nature's wheel turns, is going to be on the ballot in November. They're not going to dump him. His wife won't let him. His administration won't let him. A lot of people are invested in Joe Biden. They are not interchangeable. If Gavin Newsom got put in somehow, there are a whole bunch of people who'd lose jobs in the White House and the administration. They don't want that. Joe Biden's going to continue on. He's just going to keep getting worse. And the fact is, I mean, they elected Fetterman in Pennsylvania. Although in the last couple of weeks, John Fetterman's been a better Republican than many Republicans. Who would have saw that coming? But Joe Biden, I don't think Joe Biden's going anywhere unless he has a health crisis of some kind, including if he gets impeached. He's certainly not going to be acquitted, or excuse me, he's certainly not going to be convicted. But it is going to highlight his criminal endeavors, and I think it will do that effectively, especially if Donald Trump's stuff is continued out to 2025.
He's become the admiral of the Get Smart TV show, the way he walks around in that kind of like falling asleep as he's standing.
He's a senile old fungus. I mean, but the thing is, everybody knows it. He's not, they just don't say, they don't care. It's about power. And when it's about power, fine, we've got to get power and we've got to do it the most effective way possible. Now, my way, I'm a DeSantis supporter. I think he has a better chance to win in the election, and I think he'll do a great job. I think Trump would do a fine job as president. I just think he's going to have trouble getting elected. To me, politicians are fungible. I'm not loyal to any politician. Their job is to get elected, and if they can't do it, you find the guy who can. That being said, Donald Trump is likely to win the nomination based on what the Republican voters are saying. And when the Republican voters make their choice, I'm going to salute and sincerely support whoever they do. And I think we all need to. I see a lot of people go, I'm really mad at Donald Trump has said all these mean things about me and people who think like me, who like Ron DeSantis or Chris Christie or whoever. And I've seen some Trump people, I'm really mad at the DeSantis people for, they've been mean. Hey, toughen up. It's a primary. People are mean. Okay? I'm not going to vote against a guy because he's mean. I don't care if he's mean to me. And I've taken a lot of grief from people because they don't like who I support in the primary. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I'm utterly indifferent to anything but winning. I just want to win. And I'm going to support the guy or the gal, though in this case there is no gal, who can do it, because Nikki Haley can't do it. She's terrible. Though I would support her over Joe Biden. I'd also support my corgi over Joe Biden. Because, my corgi has Joe Biden has 50 years of total failure. My corgi has no years of total failure.
And more common sense.
Advantage Barky.
Yeah, well said. So I want to delve a little deeper into something you said, Kurt. Like you, I'm a Second Amendment guy, Second Amendment enthusiast.
Yeah.
And the wisdom of the founders giving us we have a God-given right to defend ourselves and those we love. But you said something about something that I also am very concerned about, which is all these military age men coming. Not only are they coming across the border, but Kurt, our own White House, that White House actually is suing states to stop them from letting them in. How do you see this playing out? Because that's my fear. Sleeper cells or an attack or something of that nature.
Well, you should be afraid. That's the basis of the attack. The open southern border allows hundreds, thousands of military age males to come in. Okay, to cause a terrorist attack in the United States, you do not need highly trained special ops guys. What you need is a dumb guy, and a lot of terrorists are dumb. They're not going out and getting the physicists to do it. Okay, they're getting Ahmed, the guy who's like, the second son who can't hold a job in his crappy Middle Eastern city, and somebody comes up and says, hey, do you want a little meaning in your life? Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm going to teach you to use an AK-47. I'm going to sneak you into the US. You're going to sit in a hotel room with 4 of your idiot friends. Somebody's going to drive up and we're going to hand you a bunch of a few AK-47s, the simplest rifle in the world, a bunch of mags. You're going to go to this place at this time, and then you're going to kill every American you see. And here's a little camera, and you're going to upload that so everyone can see it. So America will know that it's vulnerable and weak and defenseless. And we're going to repeat that 5,000 times across the country, all at the same time. You don't have to know any of that. All you know is you're in a hotel room with 4 guys, and then you're going to go down to this shopping mall and start shooting people at 8 a.m. on Tuesday.
Hey, thanks for cheering us up, Kurt. Appreciate it.
Well, read The Attack, my new novel. It is.
I have started reading it.
I spent a lot of time with military people, intelligence community people, government people. They tell me, yes, the scenario is entirely possible. In fact, it's super plausible. So plausible, there was stuff I cut out because I didn't want to give people ideas. But nobody's going to give ideas. Nobody needs this. Look, the mass shooter thing, and there are other kinds of terrorism, but the mass shooter thing, you remember those 2 idiots in Boston? They blew up the marathon?
Yeah.
2 idiots with a couple of handguns locked down an entire multi-million population metropolitan center for 2 days. Completely locked down. 2 idiots, untrained, poorly armed, locked it all down. Imagine that going on. Imagine a dozen in that city, and then a dozen in all other big cities and small towns and other locations. Completely overwhelms the system. But Mitch, what doesn't it overwhelm? It doesn't overwhelm us. We are America's first responders. Armed citizens are able to react. And I talk about that reaction in The Attack. That is our trump card. And where people were armed in Israel on October 7th, they did significantly better than places where people were not armed. What we're looking at is it's called asymmetrical warfare. You have, like in Israel, you have Hamas, which has absolute military weaknesses to Israel across the board. What it did is it took its limited strength, which was numbers and a total disrespect for human life, including their own. Those are advantages. And put them against the Israeli weaknesses, which is Israel didn't expect the numbers. Israel was on a holiday. Israel was not focused on this kind of attack. Israel had not armed enough civilians. Israel had civilians very close to these guys. And moving with speed and not caring about their own lives, they were able to conduct an abominable massacre, much of which they uploaded to the web. Because remember, terrorism is not a military action. It uses military forms. On some occasion, it hits military targets. It is what we call an information operation. The target is the fear center in the brain. On October 7th, it was to terrify the Israelis into complacency. Boy, they for sure called that wrong.
I want to jump in here a little about something. When we first started the Jewish Republican Alliance in March of 2016, we toyed with a lot of different names. And one of the hesitancies we had was the name Republican in our name. Because listen, the Republican Party is my home. I have no other place to go. But they've been a little bit of a party to what is going on. They have not been aggressive. They have not stood up to what the left has done. And then you have people like, the useful idiots like Bridgegate Chris, who goes on The View and says that—
I don't know if he's useful.
Yeah, well, useful to them.
Yeah.
Goes on and says, well, Trump needs to be on the ballot, but afterwards we need to put him in prison for the rest of his life. And he's talking as a Republican. And Republicans went on board and went along with all the budget deficit items that Biden had on his agenda before the election. I don't think the Republican Party is being strong enough to stand up to what Biden and the left are doing. What do you think?
Well, the Republican Party is stronger than it used to be. If you go back 15 years, it was much worse. We are slowly changing. It is slowly becoming a party much more in tune with the America First populist agenda of Donald Trump. That's why Nikki Haley is going to get maybe 1 in 5 Republicans. And between DeSantis and Trump, it's going to get 4 in 5. Remember, when you are doing a cultural war like the left is, inertia is your friend. You want people to assume things haven't changed. I used to respect institutions. I'm going to still respect them. It is hard to get people to change that. And that's why you get the business as usual attitude when it is not business as usual. That's human nature. A lot of these, country clubby Republicans are some are unable to adapt, like this Ohio governor who vetoed a no mutilating kids to conform to the delusions of their Chardonnay swilling mommies law. I mean, it's so transparent. He didn't want, uncomfortable conversations down at the country club, right? But that's changing, and it's going to continue to change as the Republican Party changes. The Republican Party is in crisis. It is a different look. Both parties have coalitions. You're trying to get 50% plus one voter in our system. And there's always going to be a tension there within the party. There's always going to be various views within the party. You're never going to have a party that's absolutely united. Frankly, I look at the Democrats, they have a much worse problem. You have the old school traditional Republicans, many of them pro-Israel, many of them Jewish, who have been liberal Republicans for years and years and years, and run the party. Generally, the old school folks still control it. And then you have this whole progressive wing that literally wants to murder the other wing of the party. I mean, these Palestinian scumbags, these aiders and abettors of Hamas, would literally murder half of the Democrat Party because they hate them as much as they hate Republicans. That is a real problem, and that's going to have to get settled by them. I think in the Republican Party, we're in the process of settling our coalition. It's going to be much more conservative, much more populist. We're going to have a couple more election cycles, but you're not going to see someone like a Nikki Haley in a couple election cycles. Her old school Republicanism's going away. The Democrat Party, if you're when they talk about decolonialization, they mean kill their enemies. How do you have a party who wants to kill a substantial portion of their own party? That's a problem. And they will try and paper over these differences. They're already trying. But it's not going to work. And at the end, that tensions, the Democrat Party is going to turn into something that doesn't look like what it was 10 years ago, just like the Republican Party will. Fortunately, the Republicans don't want to kill each other. We just want to slap each other around a little.
Yeah, the Democratic Party, even now, is unrecognizable from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's a great question from one of our viewers, David R. I'm going to summarize because it's very long, but he mentions, excuse me, that you've got people on our side, like Candace Owens, who seem to have lost her way. Then you got Tucker Carlson attacking Ben Shapiro. And, we all, of course, want a better America. So the question is, how do we counterpunch these Republican influencers to stop pushing away Jewish support?
Well, I think we got to confront them. Look, Candace Owens is not a genius, and she has a very superficial view of these issues, and apparently she has a lot of bigotry. As for Tucker, I think Tucker's problem is probably with Ben Shapiro personally. Not that I know. I've met Tucker once. I know Ben very well. I've been his lawyer in the past. Known him for 15 years. I don't know how much is personal. I have heard that quote. It doesn't sound to me like Tucker, because the Tucker Carlson we know is a Tucker Carlson who thinks that prejudices and bigotry are stupid, which they are, stupid and immoral, and they are. And I tend to think he is probably just has personal issues with Ben Shapiro. And I don't put it out of the realm of possibility that somebody asked him again about it. He goes, yeah, I thought about it, and that just didn't, that really doesn't sum up what I actually think. But there are people along the Candace Owens part, aggressively dumb people. There are young people on the right who don't like Israel, and frankly, I don't think they like Jewish people. And it's stupid and it's ugly, and I don't know where it came from. You know, I know if I was a kid and I started spouting off nonsense like that, I'd probably end up knocked across the room. And that goes for any kind of bigotry. You know, were these people raised by wolves? I don't know what the hell's wrong with them. And the idea that Israel is somehow the problem, you know, I look at the situation in Gaza, and I think if you guys had chosen not to rape and murder people, you would have like a Monte Carlo. I mean, my God, it's got this beautiful location. How happy would Israel be to have neighbors that didn't want to murder them? My God, Israel would be helping them to its own detriment. Hell, Israel's fighting them to its own detriment. Do you think I would fight like the IDF is doing? That I would send my guys inside a building to clear it out? Let me tell you what I'd do. Captain, I want that building struck. I want Artie on it right now. I want an airstrike. We're flattening it. Some jerk shot at us. I'm not getting my boys killed to save their lives. You shoot at me, everybody around you dies. That's how Americans fight. Like I'm going to go to some mom in Omaha and say, yeah, your son got killed because I refused to do what I had to do. But Israel chooses to fight like that. And I'm not going to second guess how Israel chooses to fight. If you're second guessing how Israel fights, you're pretty arrogant because those guys know how to take care of business. But it's just, it's so aggressively stupid and evil that I really don't know how to do it. I just, just some of these people I just want to slap. It's like, well, Israel apartheid, smack. Don't be stupid. A, you don't know what apartheid means. B, it doesn't mean this. C, shut up. All these little conservative influencers who think they're cool, and there aren't really that many. You just notice them. But they're historically illiterate. They're morally illiterate. They're tactically and strategically illiterate. It's like, I'm not going to listen to children. I'm just going to tell them they're stupid. You should be seen and not heard. Learn something.
Yeah, the slapping idea is a pretty.
Working out some personal bigotry. Screw you.
The slapping idea, Kurt, is a pretty good idea. Just go back to like the airplane scene, and when
yes.
People line up, it will save jail time. But just public slapping. Just line up, 100 people, and then okay, you're on your way.
Yep. Yeah, I don't have a lot of patience with idiots, and I'm just not going to tolerate it.
Well, Kurt, thank you so much for being here. Tell us again where the name of your latest book and where we can get it.
The new book is The Attack. You can pre-order it now at Amazon. I suggest you do. It'll come out on Monday, the 8th, where you can go and you can get a hardcover or paperback if you want. But you can pre-order the ebook now, and it'll show right up. I got to tell you, I'm very proud of it. I think it's I think you'll like it in the sense that it's very interesting. I used a lot. There's a lot of inside thinking in it. You will get a perspective. I chose fiction because I'm a storyteller. I've got all the Kelly Turnbull novels, Overlord's the most recent, People's Republic, and I think I can tell a story in a more visceral way through fiction sometimes than I can by just nonfiction. And that's why I chose to do it this way. And you will see perspectives of soldiers, perspectives of regular citizens, perspectives of terrorists, perspectives of people in government on how this would look, how we would react, how we're vulnerable, and how we can overcome and be victorious in the end.
And if you want even more, Kurt, rumor has it you're going to be on Laura Ingram's show tonight. What time is that?
That would be 4 o'clock California time, 7 o'clock Eastern. I'm supposedly in the A block. We will see how that works. Sometimes these things change. I'm always reluctant to say, hey, I'm going to be on Laura. And then, giraffes will escape from the zoo and they got to go live. You've been bumped because of the giraffe escape.
Well, barring that you're replaced by a escaped giraffe being interviewed, we look forward to seeing you on that. And Kurt, it is such a fast-moving hour when you're on, and we're so greatly appreciative of your time and for your entertaining and forthright opinions.
Well, thank you guys for having me. This is one of my favorite events when you guys come calling.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thanks.
Well,
Good to see you
everybody,
guys.
Happy New Year once again. We really enjoyed being out with Kurt today, and we're doing some great things with the JRA. For many of you, if you know, where tickets are selling fast, we're almost sold out with our Larry Elder event. He's coming for a luncheon on January 19th in Thousand Oaks. Mitch is building a beautiful chapter in the Nashville, Franklin area in Tennessee and doing a tremendous job there. Our Las Vegas chapter is doing really well. We have new leadership in New York and New Jersey and a lot of interested people who want to get involved. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support us, you want to help us, go to jewishrepublicanalliance.org, join us, become a member, make a donation. Your support is what empowers our mission. And by becoming a member or giving a donation, you're not just supporting us financially, you're actively participating in our community, enhancing our outreach, and elevating our influence. So thank you all for being here. Shabbat Shalom. Have a great weekend until we meet again. Bye-bye, everybody.
Shalom.